The morning sunlight poured through the towering glass walls of Sterling Industries, a symbol of wealth and ambition stretching high above the city of Port Haven. Inside, employees hurried across polished marble floors that gleamed like water. The company was known for precision, and for the man who demanded it. Ethan Cole, the company's CEO, stood in the center of the lobby with a cup of coffee in one hand and disdain written across his face. His voice carried through the air like a command. "This is what happens when you hire for image instead of competence," he declared, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Can't even clean a floor properly." The target of his words stood silently beside a bucket and mop, a middle-aged janitor named Marcus Reed. His uniform was plain, his expression calm, his posture straight. The floor beneath them was already spotless. Marcus didn't reply. He just looked ahead, eyes steady, body unmoving. Around them, employees averted their gaze, pretending to check messages or shuffle papers, pretending not to see what everyone knew was wrong. Ethan sneered. "People like you should be grateful to have any job at all." "Do it again, this time properly." As Marcus bent to work, Ethan's elbow brushed his coffee cup. Dark liquid spilled across the shining marble. Ethan watched the mess spread, then smiled with satisfaction as he turned away. Marcus stared at the spreading stain, then at his reflection in it. Calm, controlled. His sleeve lifted slightly as he reached for a towel, revealing the edge of a faded military tattoo. No one in that building knew who he truly was. 3 months earlier, Marcus Reed had walked into Sterling Industries for the first time, 15 minutes early for his shift. He paused outside the 40-story tower, studying it the way a soldier studies terrain. Every window reflected the sky. Every security camera watched the street. It wasn't just a building. It was a system, one he intended to understand from the inside out. The guard at the desk barely looked up. "New hire?" Marcus nodded. "Maintenance department." The guard handed him a badge without expression. Marcus noticed everything. The way the man's tone changed when he realized who the applicant was, the subtle hesitation before he smiled again. Marcus filed it away silently. Downstairs, Ethan Cole addressed a few new maintenance workers in the basement orientation room. His tone was impatient, dismissive. He explained the rules, but his eyes skipped right over Marcus, settling instead on the 2 younger white men beside him. "We maintain the highest standards here. Our clients expect nothing less," Ethan said, looking directly at everyone except Marcus. Marcus listened quietly, memorizing the layout of hallways, security access points, and the rhythm of people moving through them. Every detail mattered. From the doorway, the company's HR director, Lena Cho, observed the scene. Her eyes lingered on Ethan's behavior and on Marcus's silent composure. When their gazes met briefly, she looked away. Later that afternoon, Marcus arranged his small locker with methodical order. He placed a folded photograph face down on the shelf before closing the door. For a moment, the image was visible. A younger Marcus in desert fatigues, standing with his team in front of a helicopter, dust rising behind them. "Hey, you're new," a voice said cheerfully. It was Ravi, an IT technician balancing a lunch tray. Marcus nodded. "Marcus Reed, maintenance, and I'm Ravi," the man said. "If you need help finding anything, let me know. Some people around here can be a little much." Marcus smiled slightly. "I've dealt with worse." He meant it. That evening, as the others clocked out, Marcus stayed late, reviewing a malfunctioning air filter system no one could fix. Within half an hour, he found the blockage and restored the airflow. Efficiency, precision, quiet results. Upstairs, Ethan Cole noticed through the glass walls of his office. He watched the janitor adjust the system, the air gauge stabilizing almost instantly. Something about that man's calm competence irritated him more than any mistake ever could. 2 weeks passed. The janitor no one respected had become the one everyone turned to for solutions. Marcus streamlined cleaning schedules, cut downtime, improved efficiency by nearly a third. His coworkers admired him. Ethan Cole resented him. One afternoon, a commotion near the elevators shattered the routine. An elderly employee had slipped on a damp floor. Before anyone reacted, Marcus was there, helping her sit up, checking her pulse, examining her ankle. "Are you dizzy? Any pain when I press here?" he asked gently, his voice trained, confident. Then came the cold voice behind him. "What do you think you're doing, Reed?" Ethan's tone sliced through the murmurs. "Making sure she isn't hurt," Marcus replied. "That's not your job," Ethan snapped. "You're paid to clean floors, not play doctor. And by the way, there are water spots in the executive bathroom. Fix that." "Yes, sir," Marcus said evenly. The old woman shrank under Ethan's glare. The surrounding employees froze. When Ethan walked off, Lena Cho approached. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. "I'm fine," Marcus replied. "Just heading to the bathrooms." "You don't have to." "I'm handling it," he said gently but firmly. She nodded, uneasy. That night, in his small apartment overlooking the industrial district, Marcus studied the company's mechanical systems manuals. The muted television played a news segment about decorated veterans. For a moment, the camera lingered on a soldier receiving a medal. The image was blurry, but the man looked familiar. Marcus didn't glance up. His phone buzzed with a message. "Colonel Reed, we need to review your undercover assessment. Contact secured channel." He stared at the text for a long moment before typing one word in response. "Understood." The next morning, Sterling Industries buzzed with anticipation. Their biggest client presentation of the year was scheduled for 9 a.m. Ethan Cole was determined to impress. At 5 in the morning, long before anyone else arrived, Marcus inspected the conference hall. He adjusted lighting, air temperature, and every chair's position until perfection felt complete. By 9, executives lined the corridors as Ethan welcomed the clients. Among them was Admiral Hughes, silver-haired and sharp-eyed even in a business suit. When their eyes met briefly, the Admiral froze, a flicker of recognition passing before he masked it with practiced diplomacy. Ethan led the group into the meeting room. Seconds later, he burst back out, irritation painted across his face. "Reed, get in here!" Marcus entered calmly. On the table lay a deliberate mess, a pool of spilled coffee in front of the main screen. "How did you miss this?" Ethan barked. "Clients are waiting outside." "I'll clean it immediately." "On your knees if you have to," Ethan said loudly, ensuring everyone would hear. The clients entered just in time to witness the CEO's mockery. Marcus knelt, wiping the spill quietly. Every movement measured. The Admiral's face darkened. Ethan smirked. "While we wait, our janitor can serve coffee. Might as well be useful for once." For the next hour, as Ethan stumbled through slides and buzzwords, he used every pause to humiliate Marcus. "A little slower, Reed. Don't hide your incompetence. Let's show them what happens when standards drop." Each insult fell like a hammer, but Marcus's composure never wavered. Finally, when Ethan invited questions, Admiral Hughes raised his hand. "Tell me, Mr. Cole, what's your company's veteran hiring policy?" Ethan hesitated. We welcome veterans, of course." "Interesting," the Admiral replied, his gaze shifting toward Marcus. "I look forward to learning more about that." After the meeting, Ethan stormed into the empty room. "You embarrassed me in front of them," he hissed. "What did you say to that Admiral?" "Nothing, sir. Don't play innocent. I saw how he looked at you." Marcus stayed silent, Ethan's jaw clenched. "Enjoy your job while it lasts." That night, Marcus returned home exhausted but focused. On his laptop, he began typing detailed notes. Dates, times, remarks, witnesses. He labeled the file Incident Reports Cole. Then he whispered to himself, "If this is the battlefield, I'll gather intelligence accordingly." Night crept over Port Haven, and in the dim glow of his apartment, Marcus sat at his desk, surrounded by papers, floor plans, and company policy handbooks. Every page mattered. Every line was another piece of a larger pattern he was mapping out. Sterling Industries wasn't just a corporation to him anymore. It was a field of operation. He studied the layout of the executive wing, the rotation logs of cleaning shifts, and the access times on digital locks. His precision wasn't born from suspicion but from habit, the kind that came from years of making plans that left no room for error. Down on the streets, the city hummed, unaware that a man once responsible for rescue missions halfway across the world was now charting air duct diagrams and staff rosters. His phone buzzed again. A secured message blinked on screen. "Situation developing in Basra. Need your assessment in 6 hours." Marcus typed quickly. "We'll send tactical brief by dawn." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Dual lives demanded perfect balance. One was filled with mops and corporate pettiness, the other with codes and strategy. But both in their own ways were wars against chaos. At Sterling, Ethan Cole's obsession with control only grew. He began calling impromptu inspections, interrupting Marcus during tasks, finding fault where none existed. The smallest smudge became proof of failure. Each encounter more cruel, more deliberate. Lena from HR noticed, though she said nothing. She had seen people like Ethan before, men who mistook arrogance for authority. But Marcus, even under fire, showed no anger. He moved with quiet focus, responding with dignity that made Ethan's cruelty look smaller each time. A month passed, and the company prepared for its grand charity gala, a glittering event at the Regency Hall, meant to showcase Sterling's success. Marcus was assigned to the inspection team, to ensure every corner of the venue met the company's standards. As he examined the ballroom, he noticed something others overlooked: faint cracks beneath the main stage. He crouched, pressed his hand against the support beam, and felt the subtle give beneath his palm. Years of tactical building analysis came flooding back. Pressure points, stress loads, structural failure risks. He immediately called the hotel's head engineer. "This platform won't hold underweight," Marcus said calmly. "It needs reinforcement tonight." The engineer looked skeptical at first, then worried as Marcus explained the potential collapse scenario in precise technical terms. Within hours, they had a crew working through the night, stabilizing the structure. By morning, the danger was gone, but Marcus stayed invisible in the story. Later that day, Ethan toured the ballroom with the event planner and the hotel manager. "The stage looks different," Ethan remarked. "Yes, sir," the manager said. "Your maintenance team found a critical weakness. Your man Reed organized the repair overnight. He probably prevented a disaster." Ethan's smile tightened. "Naturally, that's why we run tight inspections." That afternoon, as Marcus prepared to leave for his night classes, Ethan appeared again. "I need the executive washrooms deep cleaned before you go," he ordered. Marcus checked his watch. "Sir, I have my evening lecture in an hour." Ethan's voice turned cold. "Did I ask about your schedule?" "The board arrives early tomorrow. You'll stay until it's done?" Marcus nodded, no trace of emotion. The task took 3 hours. He missed class again. His professor would mark another absence, but Marcus didn't complain. He simply studied harder when he got home. The night of the gala arrived. The chandeliers sparkled, the champagne flowed, and the city's elite gathered under one roof. Marcus worked quietly in the background, ensuring every detail stayed perfect. Ethan, surrounded by investors and board members, basked in attention. With a glass of champagne in hand, he approached Marcus, who was adjusting the floral arrangements. "Reed," he said with a smirk, "the ice sculpture is dripping. Handle it." As Marcus turned to comply, Ethan shifted his glass deliberately, spilling champagne down Marcus's uniform. "Look what you made me do," Ethan said loudly, drawing glances. "Go clean yourself up. You're embarrassing the company." A few guests exchanged uneasy looks. Among them Catherine Hale, a board member with an instinct for reading people. Her eyes followed Marcus as he walked away, then flicked toward Ethan, studying him in silence. Behind the partition, Marcus overheard Ethan laughing with 2 partners from another firm. "You have to keep certain people in their place," Ethan said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Otherwise, they forget who actually belongs here." Marcus froze. Then quietly, without expression, he activated the recorder on his phone. The words spilled out. Offensive, racist, cruel. And he caught everyone. Ethan noticed him seconds later. "Eavesdropping, Reed?" His tone was sharp, dangerous. "Perhaps you need more to do. Report for weekend inventory both days." From across the room, Catherine Hale saw the exchange. She took a discreet note in her phone. That weekend, Marcus worked alone. The building was silent except for the hum of the air system. While logging supplies, he passed Ethan's office. The door was ajar, a faint glow from the monitor spilling into the hallway. On screen were financial spreadsheets. He wasn't looking for them, but the patterns caught his trained eye immediately. Duplicate entries, padded invoices, missing audit numbers. Fraud. Millions in false billing hidden in plain sight. He didn't take photos. He didn't copy files. He memorized the key figures, the names of vendors, the project codes. When he left, the office looked untouched. 3 days later, Sterling's compliance department received a detailed anonymous report. Exact accounts, locations, instructions on where to verify. The report was too specific to ignore. On Monday, Ethan stormed into the maintenance area, fury written across his face. "Someone accessed my office this weekend," he said loudly. His gaze locked on Marcus. "You were here, don't lie." "I completed the inventory as ordered," Marcus replied calmly. "The security logs will confirm my movements." Ethan's jaw clenched. "We'll see." The next week, Marcus's hours were slashed. His paycheck shrank. His tuition payment for the MBA program loomed. Ethan's justification was wrapped in fake politeness. Budget cuts, he told HR, performance adjustments. Marcus didn't argue. He simply adapted. Nights became longer. He began teaching transition classes for veterans on weekends, helping others find jobs, build resumes, face civilian life. Sleep became rare, but discipline never left him. In the break room, his coworker Miguel lowered his voice. "It's not just you. Anyone who talks to you is losing hours." Marcus nodded. "Then document everything, every word, every schedule change. They can't erase what's recorded." A few days later, Catherine Hale appeared unexpectedly in the maintenance area. "I heard you redesigned the cleaning schedules," she said. "Yes, ma'am. We cut chemical waste by 20% and improved coverage efficiency." Her eyes lingered on him thoughtfully. "And where did you learn that?" "Experience," Marcus replied simply. "Every system can be improved when you pay attention." That same week, Marcus delivered his ethics presentation at the university, unaware that 2 Sterling board members sat quietly in the audience, watching a man they thought they knew present a brilliant data-backed case study on moral leadership. The next day, Ethan found a university envelope on Marcus's desk. "Advanced business strategy?" he scoffed. "A bit ambitious for a janitor, don't you think?" He leaned closer. "Let me save you the trouble. You'll always be what you are right now." "No degree can fix that." Marcus said nothing, but that night his apartment lights burned until dawn. Charts, timelines, internal memos. He was building something bigger than revenge, something that would expose everything. Across the city, Ethan's unease grew. Compliance emails, whispered meetings, questions from auditors. He started calling lawyers late at night. His confidence began to crack. He didn't realize the man he had tried to break was the one holding the truth that could destroy him. And that moment was coming soon. Morning came heavy with tension. The entire company could feel it, though no one spoke about it openly. Ethan Cole's confidence had turned into paranoia. He moved through the hallways like a storm, barking orders, snapping at assistants, demanding loyalty from people who quietly began to distance themselves. Marcus continued his work with the same measured calm. He was everywhere, repairing a panel, adjusting lighting, fixing something that others had ignored. It was his quiet way of maintaining order in a place ruled by fear. One afternoon, Ethan cornered him in the supply room. His voice was low and sharp. "I know what you're doing," he said. "You think you're smarter than everyone else here, don't you?" Marcus met his eyes without flinching. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "You people," Ethan hissed, the mask slipping. "Always acting like the world owes you something." The word that followed was one he hadn't said aloud before, the one that carried poison in its sound. Marcus didn't react. He just looked at Ethan the way a soldier looks at a threat he's already neutralized, calm, precise, silent. Then he asked quietly, "Will there be anything else, sir?" Ethan stepped back, suddenly unsure. Marcus turned and left, every movement controlled. But inside, something had shifted. That night, Marcus opened a new file on his laptop. He labeled it Documentation Phase 2. He recorded every detail, names, times, quotes, witnesses, and emotional impacts. He gathered statements from others who had faced similar behavior. Some were afraid to speak, but Marcus gave them courage through quiet assurance. "You don't have to fight him," he told them. "Just tell the truth and let the facts stand." Meanwhile, word of internal investigation spread through Sterling Industries. Ethan dismissed the rumors as routine audits, but he started working late, making more calls to his lawyer, growing more agitated by the day. Catherine Hale returned to the building one afternoon under the pretense of conducting an efficiency review. She observed the maintenance department closely, comparing Ethan's complaints to the spotless, well-run operation Marcus managed. Something didn't add up. Then came the day Admiral Hughes returned with a delegation of government clients. It was a quiet visit at first, but Hughes was watching closely. During a break, he caught Marcus alone by the service elevators. "The situation's worse than we thought," Hughes said in a low voice. "Cole's under financial review, but his behavior hasn't been addressed." Marcus nodded slightly. "These things take time." "You could end this tomorrow," Hughes said. "A single word about who you really are." "That's not the point," Marcus replied. "If I expose him myself, nothing changes. The system has to correct itself or it never will." Hughes studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "You always did play the long game, Colonel." That evening, Ethan made his next move. He ordered Marcus to clean the executive floor during a board meeting. It was a setup, an attempt to make him appear disruptive and unprofessional. Marcus understood it instantly but agreed without protest. When the meeting began, he worked silently, moving with practiced grace. He didn't make a sound. He didn't interrupt. His quiet efficiency filled the room like an unspoken question. Catherine Hale watched, realizing just how much Ethan had misjudged him. That night, Marcus stayed late again. His final paper was due, a thesis titled Ethical Leadership in Ground-Level Management. The case study centered on an unnamed company struggling with internal corruption and discrimination. He wrote about how leadership fails when it becomes detached from those it leads. Every paragraph reflected his life inside Sterling. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair. The city lights glowed through the window. He had turned months of humiliation into a document of truth. The next morning, an email arrived in his inbox. The board of Sterling Industries requested an urgent meeting. Attendance: Ethan Cole, Marcus Reed. Ethan arrived first, exuding false confidence, his perfect suit a shield against his own panic. He smiled, greeted the directors, and began to speak before the meeting had officially started. "I assume this is about the audit," he said smoothly. "We've already addressed compliance issues. I brought my janitor along to tidy up afterward." He gestured toward Marcus, standing quietly by the door. Catherine Hale looked up from her folder. "Actually, Mr. Cole, Mr. Reed was invited here as a participant." Ethan's smile faltered. "There must be some mistake." "There isn't," said the board chair, a calm woman named Elaine Rivers. "We've reviewed a comprehensive analysis of our company's internal issues, written by Mr. Reed. It raised serious ethical concerns supported by detailed evidence." Ethan laughed nervously. "You can't be serious. He's a janitor. How would he even have access to such information?" The boardroom door opened. Admiral Hughes entered, followed by another man in a crisp military uniform bearing the insignia of a general. "Apologies for the delay," Hughes said. General Larson insisted on attending once he heard who was on today's agenda. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. "What is this?" The general turned to Marcus. "Colonel Reed," he said. "Didn't expect to find you in a boardroom." The word hit like thunder. "Colonel?" Ethan repeated, his face pale. Elaine Rivers slid a folder across the table. Inside were military records, photographs, and commendations. They told the story of Colonel Marcus Reed, a decorated special operations commander who had led multiple rescue missions, saving hundreds of lives. General Larson spoke quietly, his voice carrying authority. "Colonel Reed's strategies are now part of our standard tactical doctrine. He has advised the Department of Defense on extraction protocols. While he's been here, he's also provided consultation on operational ethics and leadership behavior." Ethan's voice broke. I don't understand. Why would someone like you work here?" Marcus looked at him evenly. "Because I wanted to understand what happens when leadership forgets what it means to serve. I came here to study how organizations lose their humanity." Ethan tried to regain control. So this was all some experiment?
You manipulated me?
No, Marcus said. You revealed yourself. He opened his laptop and played the recording from the gala. Ethan's own voice filled the room, mocking, cruel, unmistakable. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the projector. Catherine Hale folded her hands. Mr. Cole, the board has concluded its review. Your conduct violated multiple ethical and legal standards. The vote is unanimous. Ethan sat frozen, unable to speak, as Elaine Rivers slid a document toward him. You'll find the terms of your departure on page 3. Security escorted him out minutes later. His protests echoed through the lobby, accusations of conspiracy, of betrayal, of injustice. But no one looked up. Back in the boardroom, Marcus remained calm as the directors turned their attention to him. They had questions about his findings, about his methods, about his recommendations. He answered each one with the same clarity he once used to brief soldiers before missions. The problem isn't one man, he said. It's the system that allowed him to thrive. That's what needs to change. By afternoon, the news broke. Headlines spread across every major outlet. CEO of Sterling Industries removed amid discrimination scandal. Former Special Forces commander exposes corporate corruption. The company's stock plunged. Investors demanded statements. But for the first time in years, truth outweighed power. As the sun set over Port Haven, Marcus sat in his quiet office, looking out at the skyline. He didn't feel victorious, just steady. He had seen too many battles to mistake justice for triumph. The real work, he knew, was only beginning. Within 24 hours, the city was talking about nothing else. News anchors replayed the audio from the gala. Business pages ran headlines that sounded like moral verdicts. Social feeds filled with disbelief and praise for the quiet janitor who had exposed a corrupt executive. Ethan Cole stayed hidden behind lawyers, issuing short, defensive statements through his PR firm. My actions have been misrepresented, one release claimed. But the world had already moved on from listening. Inside Sterling Industries, the boardroom buzzed with urgency. The company faced collapsing contracts, restless investors, and frightened employees. Meetings ran long into the night as directors debated whether to issue apologies or minimize exposure. Marcus sat at one end of the table, listening. When they paused, he spoke softly but firmly. If you hide from the truth, this place will crumble again in 6 months. If you face it openly, you have a chance to rebuild. The board chair, Elaine Rivers, exhaled slowly. You're suggesting transparency? I'm suggesting accountability, Marcus replied. When leaders admit failure, the people below them finally believe change is real. It was decided that Sterling would make everything public. The investigation, the reforms, the acknowledgement of harm. It was a risky choice, but it shifted the tone overnight. The next morning, Marcus walked through the lobby. The same marble floor where Ethan had once humiliated him now gleamed beneath his steady stride. Employees looked up, not in pity but in respect. Some stopped him just to say thank you. In the communications department, the head of PR met him with a nervous smile. Every major outlet wants to interview you, she said. You could restore the company's image in one appearance. I'm not the story, Marcus said. The culture is. Across town, Ethan was pacing in his penthouse, shouting into his phone. They set me up. This was orchestrated. His attorneys listened quietly, already preparing to withdraw representation. The financial investigation had uncovered too much. At Sterling, Marcus turned his focus inward. He met with every department head, from the engineers to the cleaning crews. He listened more than he spoke, taking notes, asking questions that no one at the top had ever asked before. What slows you down? What do you need to do your job better? For many, it was the first time they'd ever felt seen. He reorganized reporting lines, broke down old hierarchies, and implemented an open feedback policy. He insisted that the maintenance team receive the same training opportunities as office staff. The culture began to shift quietly but undeniably. One evening, as Marcus worked late, Lena Cho knocked on his door. Her expression carried both relief and guilt. I should have done more, she said softly. I saw what he was doing and I said nothing. You're doing something now, Marcus replied. That's what matters. She nodded, tears gathering but never falling. The board wants me to lead the ethics division. I accepted. That's a good start. 2 weeks later, Sterling Industries announced a sweeping internal reform plan. new reporting systems, bias training, whistleblower protections, and a full audit of leadership conduct. The press called it one of the boldest transparency initiatives in corporate history. Ethan filed a defamation suit the next day, accusing the company of character assassination. It lasted less than a week. His own accounting records surfaced during discovery, detailing 3 years of fraud. The case vanished as quickly as it appeared. Through it all, Marcus stayed calm, steady, methodical. He worked side by side with the same janitors he once led. He visited the mailroom, the loading docks, the repair bays. Every layer of the company became part of his new blueprint, a living system built on respect. 6 weeks later, he presented his full transformation plan to the board. The presentation was simple, free of flashy slides or jargon. He spoke about structure, trust, and communication, using the same clarity he once used to brief soldiers. When leadership isolates itself, he said, it loses sight of the mission. True efficiency comes from alignment, when the person on the top floor understands the reality on the ground floor. Elaine Rivers leaned back, studying him. Colonel Reed, this plan could rebuild everything we've lost. The only question is, who leads it? The room went silent. Then Catherine Hale spoke. I think we already know. Marcus didn't smile. He just gave a quiet nod, as though accepting another mission. In the weeks that followed, Sterling Industries began to change in visible ways. The old executive offices were redesigned into open spaces where managers worked beside staff. Department heads rotated through field shifts once a month to stay connected to the teams they directed. Employee surveys skyrocketed in positivity. Productivity rose. Clients who had paused contracts started calling again. Outside the building, a new plaque appeared near the entrance. It read, "Integrity is not a slogan. It is the foundation." Meanwhile, Marcus avoided the cameras. He declined every interview request, turning down features, documentaries, and speaking tours. Instead, he focused on his team. Late one evening, Admiral Hughes visited him in his new office. You've done more here than most officers do in a lifetime, Hughes said. Different battlefield, same kind of rescue. Marcus looked around the office, its walls lined with reports instead of medals. Maybe that's what leadership really is, he said quietly. Helping people find their strength no matter where they stand. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the glass, blurring the city lights into ribbons of color. The sound was steady, cleansing, almost like the start of something new. And while the world saw the headlines fade and the scandal settle, inside Sterling Industries a different kind of story had begun. One built not on power, but on humility, resilience, and the quiet strength of a man who never needed recognition to lead. A full year passed before anyone realized how much Sterling Industries had changed. The transformation wasn't loud or dramatic. It was steady, built layer by layer through patience and persistence. The same building that once symbolized arrogance now radiated warmth and purpose. The executive floor no longer stood above everyone else. The walls of glass remained clear, not tinted, a deliberate choice to remind leaders that transparency was permanent. Desks that once separated rank were now arranged in circles. Conversations replaced orders. Listening replaced fear. Marcus arrived each morning before sunrise, just as he had in the early days when he mopped floors in silence. He still walked through every department, the maintenance wing, the mailroom, the IT hub. He greeted everyone by name. People noticed that he never stopped being one of them, no matter what title appeared next to his name. When Catherine Hale officially announced his promotion to Chief Operations Officer, the applause in the atrium echoed through all 40 stories of the tower. Employees from every department stood side by side, and some, like Miguel from maintenance, couldn't hide their pride. He started right here, Miguel whispered, and he never forgot us. Under Marcus's leadership, Sterling launched new initiatives that no one could have imagined before. A scholarship program for employees pursuing further education, a leadership rotation where executives spent 1 week each quarter working in operational roles. The company's profits climbed, but so did something more valuable, trust. Even the walls told a story now. A large glass installation in the lobby bore the words, "Innovation through integrity." Beneath it, etched in simple script, were the names of every department, including facilities and maintenance. One afternoon, Marcus was in the operations lab with Ravi, who now led the technology team. They were troubleshooting a new communication system designed to connect every worker directly with the executive board. The sensors in the west corridor are off again, Ravi said. Let's go check it ourselves, Marcus replied, rolling up his sleeves. They traced the issue to a calibration fault and fixed it within minutes. Ravi grinned. Most executives wouldn't know a fuse from a screwdriver. Marcus smiled. Most executives haven't had to clean around one. Later that week, a young man named Jordan stopped by his office. He worked for another tech company and looked uneasy as he spoke. Mr. Reed, I've been dealing with something like what you went through. My manager keeps overlooking me for projects. I don't want to quit, but it's wearing me down. Marcus listened carefully. Keep records, he said. Dates, words, witnesses. Truth has power when it's organized. You can't always change people, but you can protect yourself with facts. Jordan hesitated. Couldn't you just talk to my CEO? People would listen to you. Marcus shook his head. That's not how change lasts. It has to come from within the system, not above it. Otherwise, it collapses when you walk away. When the young man left, Marcus sat quietly for a long moment. Then he turned to his computer and opened a document labeled Sterling Educational Initiative. He finalized the proposal to fund scholarships for maintenance and support staff. The program would bear the name of his former military unit, not his own, because he believed no achievement was ever truly individual. As he reviewed the final details, a familiar knock sounded at the door. Admiral Hughes stepped inside, the same calm authority in his presence. You've built something remarkable here, he said. Different mission, same outcome. You saved people. Marcus looked around the office, now lined with photos, his old team in uniform, the new Sterling leadership team beside them, smiling, diverse, unified. It's still about rescue, he said softly. Only now it's rescuing potential, helping people see what they're capable of before the world tells them otherwise. Hughes nodded. You've turned a battlefield into a model for progress. That's leadership. Outside, the city stretched wide beneath the sunset. The skyline glowed gold, and the reflections danced across the glass tower that once represented division. Now it stood as proof that a place could change when one person refused to surrender to injustice. Ethan Cole eventually resurfaced, leaner, quieter, working as a consultant on corporate reform. He requested a meeting one afternoon, and Marcus agreed. The man who entered was not the same one who had once ruled with arrogance. His voice carried humility, even a trace of shame. I wanted to thank you, Ethan said. I used to think control was leadership. Turns out it was fear. Marcus studied him, seeing not an enemy but a man who had finally learned the cost of his choices. Growth takes longer than power, he said, but it lasts longer too. When Ethan left, Marcus stood at the window for a moment, watching the reflection of the city shimmer in the glass. The same marble floors below were still spotless, but this time, they didn't represent submission. They reflected light. Years of struggle, silence, and resilience had turned humiliation into transformation. The man who once cleaned the floors now built the foundation others would walk upon, stronger, fairer, better. As dusk deepened, Marcus returned to his desk. A single line from his old field journal rested in a frame beside him. True strength isn't in command. It's in restraint. True victory isn't in winning, it's in changing what losing means. He smiled, closed his laptop, and turned off the light. The story wasn't about revenge. It never was. It was about what happens when quiet dignity meets arrogance and wins without hatred. And somewhere in the hum of the city below, in the lives of those who now worked without fear, the echoes of that victory continued to grow. Months later, the story of Sterling Industries had spread far beyond Port Haven. Business schools dissected its transformation in classrooms. Magazines wrote about its Reed model, a leadership approach that blended discipline with empathy. The world called it innovation. Marcus called it doing what was right. Inside the company, the rhythm of life had changed. Teams collaborated across levels, and performance reviews now measured not just results but how leaders treated people. The atmosphere felt alive, like the building itself had started breathing again, but the calm never lasts forever. Every transformation faces its test. One evening, while Marcus reviewed quarterly reports, Lena entered with concern shadowing her face. We've discovered irregularities in the new security software contracts, she said quietly. Massive discrepancies. It could undo everything we've rebuilt. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. Who's involved? A third-party vendor. They falsified audit logs. Someone inside approved the payments. He stood, already calculating. Find the original purchase orders. Trace every approval signature. No one covers tracks perfectly. By morning, the investigation revealed the truth. A senior executive, one of the newer hires who had quickly risen in the reshuffled structure, had been manipulating systems for personal gain. It wasn't on the scale of Ethan's corruption, but it threatened to stain the company's new reputation. The discovery hit everyone hard. Employees who believed in the rebirth of Sterling now whispered in corridors again, afraid that the old rot had returned. Marcus called for an open meeting in the atrium. No podium, no microphone, just him standing among everyone. You've all seen the reports, he began. His voice was steady, carrying not command but conviction. We said this company would be built on transparency. That means we confront problems together, not in whispers. He explained what had happened, named no scapegoats, and promised complete accountability. The air was tense at first, then slowly shifted. People listened because they trusted him. When he finished, silence lingered, not from fear but from respect. Afterward, one of the interns approached him. Why didn't you try to hide it? She asked. Because hiding it would mean we're back where we started, Marcus said. Integrity only matters when it costs you something. That moment defined the company even more than the original scandal. Sterling didn't fall back into silence. It stood taller. The board unanimously adopted Marcus's new policy: real-time audit transparency, open internal reporting, and rotational oversight. The media expected another crisis. What they got instead was a model of resilience. Headlines read, "Sterling Industries proves redemption is possible." That evening, Marcus walked through the nearly empty offices. The building hummed softly, the glow from the city outside painting golden lines across the floor. He stopped by the maintenance wing where Miguel was polishing a new plaque on the wall. Looks good, Marcus said. Miguel smiled. It's for the new trainees, so they remember why we started fixing things right. Marcus read the inscription. Respect is not granted by position. It's earned by conduct. The words carried a quiet weight. He reached out and brushed the surface with his hand, nodding once before heading upstairs. Later that night, as rain began to fall against the windows, Marcus sat alone in his office, the lights dim. The city stretched below him, restless and alive. He thought of how it all began, a mop in hand, insults echoing through a marble atrium, how humiliation had become discipline, and how silence had turned into strategy. He picked up a small envelope from his desk. Inside was a letter written in careful handwriting. It was from Ethan Cole. Marcus, it began, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I've been volunteering at the Veterans Center you helped fund. I understand now what leadership should look like. It took losing everything to see it. You were right. Power means nothing if you don't use it to lift others. Marcus closed the letter slowly. There was no satisfaction in the words, only closure. People could change when they were forced to face themselves, and that was its own kind of justice. He walked to the window and watched lightning flash over the harbor. The skyline flickered, the rain trailing down the glass like memory. He thought of every person who had stood silent once, every voice that now spoke freely, every worker who now walked into the building without fear. In the reflection, he saw his own face, older, calmer, not victorious, but fulfilled. He whispered to himself, this is what rescue looks like. Behind him, the first rays of dawn began to pierce the clouds. The city stirred awake, and so did Sterling. The man who once cleaned its floors now guarded its future, not as a soldier, not as a savior, but as a reminder that dignity, once reclaimed, can rebuild an entire world. And with that, Marcus turned off the lights and stepped into the morning, ready for the next mission wherever it waited.